Brad Williams, Excel Prime. Section 9.6, what are Excel function arguments and how do they work? In the previous examples, I emphasized parentheses, nested parentheses and normal parentheses. Anything inside the parentheses is noted or regarded or looked at as arguments. And there's within the functions within Excel, you're going to see you're going to have the expression built around arguments. And that's the backbone of Excel functions. And most Excel functions are surrounded by arguments. Functions vary in the way they use arguments depending on what it has to do. A function may use one of the following: no arguments, one argument, a fixed number of arguments, an indeterminate number of arguments, and optional arguments. An example of a function that doesn't use an argument is the now function, which returns the current date and time. Even if a function doesn't use an argument, you must still provide a set of empty parentheses like this. Here's a now function. Still see there's parentheses. The parentheses in the function are part of the function. The function is now, and the parentheses are the arguments. In our earlier example, you could still compute the calculation without the parentheses, but there's still a form of an argument. But with functions, most require the parentheses, which the information inside the parentheses is the argument. For example, we have a whole bunch of different functions within Excel. There's over 450 built-in functions, and some of those functions consist of cell references, literal values, literal text strings, expressions, and even other functions. And here are some examples of functions that use various types of arguments. We have a cell reference equals sum, and then A1 to A24, the argument would be A1 to A24. Literal values, square root, and then 121 is the number. The argument would be 121. The literal text string proper is the function. The argument is John F. Smith in parentheses. Expression, square root, the expression would be 183 plus 12. Other functions, square root, sum, A1, A21. So you have an expression within a literal value. Now don't get caught up in the terminology. Get used to the requirement of parentheses to differentiate the expressions, the operators, and the function. To complement what we've already talked about, as I mentioned, there's over 450 Excel functions. Now there's third-party groups that have their own functions that you can purchase. They're probably available for free online if you searched wide enough. There's also macro functions, which is a whole different level within Excel. And those are just software written measures that will do some automation within Excel. And a little more about functions. As I touched on before, functions are a tool built in to Excel. And the best way to get to functions, there's two different ways. You can go into the formula bar. Here, you're going to have this FX, and that's just an entry into all the functions. And once you hit FX, it displays the functions available. Here is just a dialog box. It shows most recently used functions, and I think it lists 10 or 15 functions that are commonly used by you. I've used the median, sum, address, and a few other functions, and it just lists. You can click this down arrow, and it will show all the functions, and this will list all of the functions, and you can count, and there's probably going to be close to 450. If you want to break it down, if you want just the financial functions, hit financial. If you want date and time functions, You'll get the date and time information. You have math and trig functions, statistic functions, lookup and reference. There is database functions. You have text functions, logical functions, information functions, and then user-defined functions. Now, don't get overwhelmed. This may seem a little much up front, but that's just a general overview of functions. To use a function, why don't we just go up to the formula bar, hit f of x, insert function, hit the sum, because we're just going to add something. We enter this information into C24. Let's enter 5 in D25, in D24, and then 6 in D26. You can see the sum function adds D24 to D25, or your expression is D24 to D25. This is the expression. Your operators are D24 and D25. You can also enter your own function, starting with an equal sign. So you go equal sum, and you could see Excel tries to help you out here. Once you see sum, hit sum, and it'll put a parentheses there. It'll start off formula or the function or the expression with a parenthesis. Click F5, hold down the shift key, F6, and then just press enter. And you just completed your first function. To end this session, you can create your own function using these expressions. Equals sum, and then you can go 1 plus 3, and there you go. Brad Williams, Excel Prime. See you soon.